Where's the program? Yeah. Tiny. Okay. I start by saying that the word development in economics is becoming irrelevant unless you add another adjective to it. Development, development, development. But it's becoming irrelevant. In the olden days, it is customary, particularly during the UNDP time, it's very important to look at the word development by looking at the Human Development Index, like health, like education, like the GDP. And you now use those indices to measure development. After that one, during the structural adjustment program in the early 80s, once you fulfill the Washington consensus of IMF and World Bank, they say, yes, you are developing. But the real issue is that really development? Today, the manifestation of development indicator can only be seen in terms of now and future. What am I saying about that? To be able to say that there is development, it must lead to something that is enhancing the life of people now and in the future. When you look at some of the issues that has led to certain development, it has created additional problem. So it's not justifying the future. A good development will be the one that will allow the current consumption without marginalizing future consumption of people. And that is why we are saying that the word development needs to be redefined by adding another adjective. And what is the adjective? Sustainable development. The one that will not compromise the future of the unborn children. Quite a lot of our politicians we have been listening since, they think of now, future is not what concerns them at all. So and that's the real thing we want to look at, particularly when it comes to African future. Now, look at the quotation of that man, Richard Nogard in 1994. He raised an alarm saying, modernism, in its system manifestation and development, has betrayed progress. It has betrayed progress. And that is his book there. Why? While a few have actually attained excellence, a few countries, it is at the opportunity cost of other countries. You look at the global economy now, you discuss our economy are doing extremely well, some are actually in trouble. Is that development? No. We have been told that Nigerian economy, the GDP is growing. Yes. Somebody described Nigeria as a country that is rich, but where poor people are living. That is not a good development. That means that the money is not evenly spread. A good development must take now into consideration as well as the future. So that is why that writer, please put it back. Can you put it back, please? Thank you. Okay, good. I can manage it from here. Okay. That's why that writer says modernism betrays progress by leading us to what? Into preventing us from seeing and keeping us from addressing interwoven environmental and organizational cultural problems as well as the future. Okay? Perhaps the best way to look at the issue of development is sustainable development is to look at it within the Rotarian issue of four-way test. If it is actually a sustainable development, number one, it must be the truth. Number two, it must be fair to all concerned, whether it is people now or people in the future. It must build goodwill and better friendship. And more importantly, number four, it must be beneficial to all concerned. A development in which only few people are benefiting is not being fair to all concerned, and also it is not beneficial to all concerned. So the role of a leader under sustainable development is that a good leader should be able to see himself pursuing a sustainable development. Development that captures the interest of the living and one that captures the interest of the unborn. Well, we hope that our people will get there. So let us look at Africa. Sustainable development in Africa, since GATT of 1947, that was when GATT was created. You know that after the Second World War, there was need to actually address the issue that led to the First World War. And therefore, 3 institutions were to be created. 1, to take care of the devastation that was brought about by the First and the Second World War. And secondly, to take care of the issue that is affecting the monetary system. And thirdly, to take care of the issue that is affecting global trade. So World Bank was created to be able to take care of the issue affecting the destruction. And that's why it's titled the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The IMF was created also to take care of the monetary crisis that was witnessed during the First and the Second World War. Then that was equally created. Then with respect to trade, International Trade Organization was to be created. And it was agreed at that conference, but by the time Americans got home, they said, no, we cannot subject our trade to everybody to be discussing. And that was why only article of the General Agreement of Trade and Tariff in 1947 was allowed to be pursued. And therefore, since 1947, we now see a lot of round. In other words, we go to this country, we discuss what is going to be the tariff structure, we move after 2 years, and then discuss it. And then 8 of that round went ahead under the General Agreement of Trade and Tariff until 1986, when we have the last trade round, which was the Uruguay round, that led to the creation of WTO. But with GATT and WTO, they have been going down with respect to issues affecting tariffs. And tariffs have actually narrowed down, and that has created a lot of substantial opportunity in trade. But again, a lot of this opportunity in trade has not actually led to development of many countries. A lot of countries are wallowing in poverty. Let's look back again. But what do we see in the global economy now? In the global economy with respect to trade, it's a situation of trade war. And particularly what I witnessed in Argentina last year was in the Ministerial Conference of World Trade Organization, in which no agreement was reached at Buenos Aires. Why? Because countries came there with their hardline position. If it is this way, we are not going to agree. So the global environment is a situation in which you cannot even predict the future again, particularly with respect to trade and investment. Under that kind of situation, what do we do? Because a trade war between America and China, all of us are familiar with it. When we say it is only America and China, okay, if the Chinese economy that are buying quite a lot of material from you, they can no longer export their product to America, will it not affect you here? After they produce, you see, the global economy is interconnected under globalization to the extent that when a prosperity is happening, one, it will affect the other one. When a problem is happening now, it will affect the other one. So there is contamination of problem from the global war, trading war that we are having now. So, and we did not create that problem, but we cannot run away from the implication of it. And that is why the issue of sustainable development is becoming very crucial. Because we are equally connected. Though we may not be in the war zone, America or China, but at the same time, we trade with them, and whatever is happening here, we have negative implications. So what do we do in Africa with respect to some of these emerging realities? Look at that quotation from Embassy in 2016. Inter-African trade is only what? 12% or less. That is, countries among Africa, their trade volume among themselves is just around 12%. Most of them trade with the European Union, America, and other countries of the world. Which means whatever is happening in those places will affect us more than what is happening among ourselves. Now look at North American Free Trade Area. They trade among themselves 40%. But Asian economy, their own is 30%. Unfortunately, Africa will account for only 3% of the global trade. And whether it is Doha Development Agenda of the World Trade Organization, whether it is AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act of the America, whether it's the economic partnership agreement between EU and developing countries, each of these agreements have not been negotiated in a manner that will benefit us. And therefore, what is our concern about all this development? And quite a lot of Africans are running to China to go and borrow money. We have a story of a country being taken over by China now. Why? Because they owe so much money into a lot of negative agreements which they signed. And therefore, they are taking the thing over. I won't mention the country. You can go and find out. But what we are saying is that it is not a matter of rushing to a country to benefit you. You see, global economy never gives you what you deserve except by negotiation. And therefore, we need to be able to make sure that we don't only negotiate, but we know where we are going. And that is why the issue of making sure that rather than rely on developing countries, what do we do for ourselves to be able to have access to sustainable development? Look at what those very wonderful leaders said. The leader of Kenya, he said, there cannot be good reason why it is easier for us to trade with Asia, with Europe, than ourselves. And that is the president of Kenya. And then the president of Ghana equally say, it was the dream of our founding father to create a continent where people can move freely with their goods and services across the continent. What are these people saying? Rather than relying on America or European Union, why don't we actually open the market for ourselves and trade with ourselves better? After all, the international environment is imposing a lot of conditionality on our survival. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Economic Partnership Agreement. It was an agreement which was designed by European Union alone and was more or less being forced on us. It's only Nigeria that never signed, and Gambia, out of the 15 member countries of ECOWAS. All the other ones, they have entered into it. And that is not making the economy better anyway, because it can lead to deindustrialization. Why? Because what is happening is that whatever thing you are producing in Nigeria, you are manufacturing in Nigeria, they'll be supplying it cheaper to you, and that will kill all the industries in Trans-Amadi Industrial Estate in Port Harcourt, and that one in Ikeja Industrial Estate, as well as Bompa in Kano. So we need to be able to see that through the principle of understanding that right now it is better to actually arrange trading among ourselves, right? So that's the need for continental economic integration, which our leaders need to know. So let us look at what African Union actually patterned for themselves right from the beginning. Among the objectives of the EU Charter when it was created in 1963, it will actually move the entire continent towards development by collaboration. Therefore, in 1980, something came up in Lagos. They call it the Lagos Plan of Action. A Lagos Plan of Action was an action plan that will make all the member countries of Africa to be able to have a focus of trading among themselves better. This action plan of 1980 was concretized in Abuja Treaty of 1991, and it was titled African Economic Community Treaty. And under the African Economic Community Treaty, what happened? In it, we discovered that Africa now have a progress of economic integration among themselves. And how will it be? The integration will follow about 6 steps. Number 1, under the phase 1, there should be creation of regional blocks, like ECOWAS, like SADC, like COMESA, right? After the creation, each of these regional economic communities will be strengthened. They'll be strengthened. And then number 3, the establishment of free trade area and customs union. I will explain that one later on. And then number 4, creation of continental free trade area. And then number 5 is the creation of common market. And lastly, which is the 6th stage of economic integration, is an economic union, where we may have a common currency. That is the target which African Economic Community have for itself under Abuja Treaty 1991. Okay? Now, this is how it works. Under a free trade area, member countries that are having a free trade area, they will not charge themselves any tariff. Import to me, export to me, I export to you, no tariff among ourselves. Free trade. Free trade. But any other country that is exporting may be taxed or impose import duty. But for some of us, the two of us that are agreeing, or three of us that are agreeing, or the community that are agreeing, there is a free trade, no import duty. In ECOWAS, we have achieved that one. We call it ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, in which any product you are producing in Nigeria here, you can send it to any ECOWAS country. There is not going to be any import duty. Okay? So, also, Africa equally have quite a lot of regional economic community like ECOWAS, and they have free trade area among themselves as well. But the second stage of economic integration is a custom union, in which not only do we have free trade among ourselves, but anyone exporting to us, we have to charge such an individual or such a country the same import duty. That's common external tariff. ECOWAS reached that stage on the 1st of January 2015. So also, among other regional economic communities in Africa, they have reached such a level that's a common external tariff level. Beyond that one is a common market, which I explained over there. What does a common market mean? It means that factors of production and quite other economic policy will be streamlined to more or less be the same thing. Like, as my brother said earlier, common investment policy, common agricultural policy. So that is another stage. Then the final stage is where the entire economy will be together, and then we can have a single currency. This is what Africa have for themselves under the Abuja Treaty 1991. Okay, so our founding fathers in Africa, they already have a program of economic integration that will allow us to move from free trade area to custom union, from custom union to common market, from common market to an economic community, possibly with one single central bank, one currency. That is what they have for themselves. Let us just quickly look about how this thing works. Look at it. Let us agree that there's a product. They call the product A, and it's quoted in dollar. And there are 3 countries there. We have Nigeria, we have Ghana, and then we have France. Let us agree that both Ghana and Nigeria, they operate a free trade area. That is, they are selling products to themselves in which they won't charge themselves. Okay. Let us look at what happened. That particular product A costs $50 in Nigeria, but in Ghana it costs $40, but in France it's $30. So France is the cheaper producer among these 3 countries. Okay? Let us see another situation in which Nigeria wants every of the product to be bought in Nigeria and impose a custom duty of 100%. So that means the price of the product in Nigeria will be $50. Because of 100% impose on Ghana, it will be $80. Because of 100% impose on France, it's now going to be $60. Let us say that they reduce the import duty to 50 instead of 50, instead of 100. So if it is now 50, then it will mean that the price will still be 50 in Nigeria, it will be 40, it will be 60 in Ghana, and then it's going to be 45 in France. That is, you just have 50% to the previous price, and then you add it together. Now, with that import duty coming on Ghana and France, the product will be cheaper in France. Now, let us now agree that Nigeria and Ghana now have a free trade area among themselves. That is, no import duty on Ghana. Let's look at what is going to happen. Because there's no import duty in Ghana, the product is cheaper in Ghana than in France. So, and that is what economic integration means. That is what Africa wanted to achieve. They want to make sure that products among ourselves should not be taxed, so that the one coming from outside will look a little bit more expensive, and we can trade more among ourselves. So that is the program that we have ourselves under ECOWAS, and then also under the African Union. Now, there are 8 regional communities in entire Africa. Those are the list of the communities. We have the Maghreb, Arab Maghreb, we have the community of Sahel, we have COMESA, we have AEC, that is East African Community, we have ECOWAS, we have Intergovernmental Authority, and then we have SADC. Each of these regions, they have their own economic integration agenda. So what African Economic Community Treaty says is that each of these RECs, by the time we start merging African together, all of them will start dropping their own, not that they will drop their own totally, but they will now merge, and then we are going to have a continental free trade area. What they have been practicing among themselves, we now be practicing in the entire continental wide. And that is the dream of the founding fathers of the entire continent. So, what are the objectives of African Continental Free Trade Area? When you look at what I've said, a continental free trade area was number 4 of the Economic Community Treaty. So, and it was to be completed December 2017, in which Africans will trade among themselves without import duty, so that we can actually ensure that we have greater flow of goods and resources, so that there can be subcontracting of activities, and more product will actually be flowing, rather than focusing on America, focusing on Europe for trading. So what are the main reasons, the objective of this treaty, that is African Continental Free Trade Area? 1, to establish a single continental market for goods, as well as for services, so that businesses and professionals can move across. Number 2, to expand the inter-African trade through better harmonization and coordination of liberalization and facilitation among the regional economic community. And thirdly, to actually make sure we resolve overlapping of jurisdiction. Dr. Avolabi made mention of something, that in ECOWAS, we have ECOWAS. Yes, we still have a Francophone bloc. So also we have, even in some South African area and East Africa, we have some regional economic community, and then we have some another arrangement inside. So under African Continental Free Trade Area, all these kind of a multiplicity and overlapping of jurisdiction of economic integration will actually be net out, and then we are going to have a smooth flow of goods and services across the entire continent. So that is the ambition. The first stage of African Continental Free Trade Area was concluded this year in Kigali on 21st of March. And there are 3 protocols. The protocols on trading goods, the protocol on trading services, as well as the protocol on dispute settlement system. And as we are told, and as you might have known, out of the 59 member states, 44 African countries signed. It's rather unfortunate that Nigeria, that was Lagos Plan of Action, started in 1980, as I said earlier. Abuja Treaty, which is the African Economic Community Treaty, was titled in the name of Nigeria Federal Capital. On the day of the signing, we did not go there to sign. What are the implications of that? The implication is that if you did not sign, then that means you cannot participate within the continental-wide trade. And it's more serious than that. Because it equally allows for the right of establishment, it means that the only mandate by which some Nigeria have business in other African countries is that we assume that that was not necessary. But right now that is necessary and is documented, if you did not sign, those business can no longer stay there, because your Nigerian business people, they are not part of it. And therefore, they may be on their way back home. And then when our president did not go, some of us came out, we said that is a diplomatic error. 1, it is against Nigerian foreign policy of Afrocentric. Over the years, since the Baliwa time, Nigerian foreign policy has been that of Afrocentric policy. It is not within the spirit of Afrocentric policy for Nigeria not to be part of African Continental Free Trade Area. And today, as we are talking, the president is now establishing a committee to be able to look at African Continental Free Trade Area with the ways of making sure that we quickly sign. I'm going to be a member of the technical working group. But what we are saying is this: if Nigeria did not sign before 22 countries within Africa ratifies it, then we can only get there by accession. What do we mean by this? What we mean is that if they are forming a club, you are not part of those who form the club. By the time the club is formed, if you want to join, they can impose more regulation on you. If we did not sign before 22 members ratify it, then it will therefore mean that we are going to follow the accession under the WTO guidelines, which means that we are going to negotiate by each of the African countries to become a member of African Continental Free Trade Area that started in Nigeria. I think in March we organized a conference here in Covenant University to kick-start this idea, and that's what the setup of the research department that we have, the research section we have in the Department of Economics. So I believe that with the conclusion of the head of state inaugurating that committee today, within the next few weeks, we must make sure we sign. Not only signing, after signing, you have to send it to your National Assembly for ratification, and it should be deposited with the African Union Commission that you are now part of it. But if we do not do that, we can only become a member through what we call accession. And accession implies that a small country like Cape Verde, a small country like Guinea-Bissau can say that, well, if you want to become part of African Continental Free Trade Area, I won't allow Nigeria to do this, I won't allow this one to do it. And that is what we shall be imposing on ourselves if we did not sign in time. So, that is it. So we have 3 major protocols: the protocol on goods and services, the protocol on rules for procedure on dispute settlement system. Then after this one, we are going to have 3 other protocols, and that one will come in the second stage of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and that is likely to be from February next year. And what are these protocols? 1, the one on investment; 2, the one on competition; and 3, the one on intellectual property rights. So the danger of Nigeria not being member since March is that every other meeting that has been happening since March, Nigeria cannot participate. And since all the other countries are already formed quorum, whatever they agree, we are bound by it. We are bound by it. It's just a case of a cock that said that all animals can go for meeting, whatever you agree at the meeting, no problem. And when the animals now meet, and then they say, okay, what should we do at this meeting? Any sacrifice we want to do, we shall be using the dynasty of cock. And when they get home, cock say, how was the meeting? They say, it's fine. But henceforth, your children will be used for sacrifice, because you were not there when they were actually doing it. I hope it will not be as serious for Nigeria. So we are going to make sure that we sign quickly. So, right? So, those protocols are concluded. The other ones are coming to be concluded as well. Now, the accession option for Nigeria. I hope this stage will not come, but if it comes, it's going to be a very tough situation. Number 1, quite a lot of our people will go around different countries to go and negotiate with them. We don't have to go to that rigor now. So that is the only way that we can ensure that Africa has a future. The global environment is already witnessing turbulence. And therefore, an African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as other programs of economic integration, will give us an opportunity to have our own continental-wide kind of an economic community where we can trade among ourselves, so that if the global economy is becoming tough, then we can actually adjust within our own continent. Okay? So, So sustainable development may not be realizable despite the fact that the United Nations said the developing country will witness double of what they are doing now. Why? Because the global economy is changing. There may be development, but it may not be sustainable. Sustainability is the time of guaranteeing the future as well. Right? So, AFCFTA is an integration among the landmines among African countries to ensure that they can actually protect the entire continent from the upsurge of being balkanized by the world powers. No, Africa was divided before. Now another opportunity to divide them is coming, and China is going to do whatever it can to be able to divide us again. But once we have an economic integration that we are allowed to be able to focus at this one as a block, then it's not going to be possible for them again. As at now, it's advisable for the leadership of every country to sign to ACFTA. 8 countries have ratified now. We need additional 14 so that we can have the 22 countries that will allow the thing to kick off. Nigeria's position of not signing is not a good one, as I've said, but at the same time, we should try as much as possible to fast-track the development of having our own signature and ratifying the thing as well. Lastly, the issue of sustainable development is an issue that is affecting the global economy. But the impact is on us more because more Africans are poor than any part of the world. And therefore, the future of more Africans is in doubt. Therefore, we should see sustainable development as the only option, and the best way to be able to attach it is coming together to be able to look at our own future together so that we can ensure that the joint prosperity will be better than individual prosperity. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very astute presentation. Can we put our hands together? Just before we go for lunch, we'll just take a few comments, feedback for that presentation. Comments, feedback for that presentation, very quickly. Yes, ma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm always in awe when Dr. Aremu makes his presentations. It's always just great when someone presents on something that he knows, and he's clearly the authority. Now, what I've been struggling with, the letter of the law makes it clear that the best thing to do is for us to sign. The reality is really, are we ready? Are we ready not from a legal or a negotiation perspective, but are we competitive enough as a country? You know, just as I was saying, every situation we find ourselves, we saw it coming. AFCTA is for the ready. It's for a market that's competitive. Then when you sign and you become a member of this single market, it's going to benefit your country. But we're in a situation right now that goods produced in Turkey are cheaper than what's produced in Nigeria. So you have a plant that was set up in Nigeria, and in less than a year, they've had to close it down because it doesn't make sense. And we've lost the jobs and everything that was created. So this is the struggle I have. So there's a side of me that when I read, it makes sense for us to join now. But what are the implications on ground? If I may cheat, please forgive me. I have a question for you.
Oh, thank you.
But not on this. You know, when we were talking about the last panel discussion,
Yes.
and you handled the issue of culture,
Yes.
something else I've been struggling with. Leadership is about questioning. It's about breaking molds. Sometimes it's about challenging. And then you fix whatever needs to be fixed. Our culture is one of accepting. It's one of respecting authority. It's one of, you know, let's all work together. If it's not going to kill us, let's just move with it. But the conquering, no, not even conquering, the leadership spirit is somewhat different. And I must say that I'm at a point where I'm like, even the way we teach in our schools and the way we socialize our children will have to change if we want them to be able to rise above what our culture, which I would say the British maximized it because we were the perfect colony, because everything about us was about respecting authority, and accepting the situation in which you find yourself. So how do we deal with that issue of culture? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. I'd like understanding what it means to be a leader. Unfortunately, it also happens that in this part of the world, and I'm sure in some other parts of the world as well, there's a misunderstanding of what leadership is. And a lot of people have said that already. People feel like leadership is about accumulating as much as I can rather than serving the people. And so from the home, I think we should begin to teach our children that leadership is about service. And not just the home as well, in schools, in churches, everywhere we find ourselves, we should take on that responsibility. I hope I've been able to answer that question, Ma. Thank you very much. Yes, we have further feedback questions. That lady in blue.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Odumare Otoyosi, an MBA student, MBA 1. Thank you very much for what you said, Ma. It was part of my question. I would have even liked to direct the question to Dr. Afolabi, because he was the one that spoke on it. It was talking about leadership, 3 types of leadership, and he said leaderships that make their people, leadership that are made by their people, and leadership that own their people. Then a man asked the question saying it has to start from the home. But my question is this. Many a times, yes, it starts from the home, but the kind of, like she said, that if we change, then it has to change. The way we are all brought up has to change. Now, it's very, very certain that every Nigerian parent or every African parent have this notion that I have seen what you've not seen. So whatever I say is correct. And it starts from then. Because leadership for me, it starts from decision making. You've been able to make your decision. Learn from it even if you make a mistake. But we discovered that many African parents will say, no, don't study this, study this. That is where it all starts from.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the youths are not able to make their decisions. And that is where the leadership in them start dying. Now, please, the question I want to ask, because I know we have many parents here. I'm not a parent, so as I'm asking, the question is, instead of enforcing your rule on your child, why not discuss? Now, if you tell some other people, they will say, no, you don't discuss with your children because you are supposed to lead them, teach them. But there are some times that discussion make you understand them better. And I would like you to just emphasize on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we live in a time when analog parents are raising digital children, and so that's also a very big challenge as well. Dr. Afolabi has a robust reply for that lady.
Oh, thank you. My sister, I think luckily you were in the Accession conference, and You see, the Africa cannot wait for Nigeria. So they cannot wait. So that is why they are going ahead. Whether we are there or not, they are still going ahead. They are going to stage 2, even if you are not there. At the time you join, you only join and then take every condition you meet on the way. So you see, Nigeria not being competitive is not because it's our own problem. Have you ever seen any number 1 in Olympic that doesn't want to contest? I mean, it's a paradox. An economy as big as if they have all the opportunity but not ready to compete. It shouldn't be an excuse at all. Now, what is making us not to compete? Some people are even giving information that goods will be entering Nigeria from. Look, it's more delicate now because some of these companies will be cited at the Republic of Benin. And then your custom will allow the goods to enter. And because you did not sign the dispute settlement, you cannot take any country to any court, even if there is what we call trade deflection into your economy. But it is when you sign that you can use the provision within the African Continental Free Trade Area to argue your case. Not signing is the worst situation. It is an economic error, it is a political error, it is a diplomatic error. And that is why, as I'm talking now, the president is inaugurating a committee to look at it. Dangote did not support this thing initially, but a week's time, he's having an international conference about ratification. It did not mean say signing in Lagos. So it's not, our not being competitive is just because our roads are bad. And who imposed it on us? It's stealing, corruption, lack of good leadership. So we can't use that one as an excuse to be able to say we are not competitive. I've been privileged to work in the ECOWAS Commission and I've gone to nearly all the countries. We are still far better than quite a lot of the countries there. So what is it? I think that as good as that argument is that we are not yet prepared, we should go and prepare and go into it. That's just the option. No other option.
Thank you so much, sir. We still have more questions. Sir, would you like to respond now? Not you, sir. Dr. Afolabi.
Thank you, madam. Me and my big mouth, I think I should have. I don't think, maybe I shouldn't have broached that topic. Two simple examples. some time ago. My child was supposed to enter primary 1 at the Lagos, at Unilag, if she had attained the age of 6 by August 31st. Unfortunately, she's September 6. And the whole household said I should go and get another birth certificate very easily in Somolu. And my answer was, why should I start the life of my child with a lie? And later in life, when they ask, what's your age, is which one? She's doing very well now. She's a medical doctor in the US. But as of that time, the whole idea was, do it. Everybody was doing it. Another child scored 199 in JAMB. The University of Ilorin had told me, because I helped them to start the department, if she just scores 20, she will come in on merit. I came back home, I found that she was quarreling with everybody, that they should do something. And I called her and I said, look, the basic thing is that you are an Afolabi and you failed. Afolabis don't fail. You should be ashamed of yourself for failing. That one mark, I can do it because the director of IT in JAMB was a very good friend. His wife was a classmate to my wife, and most of the staff in JAMB IT, they were my students in Unilag. So all I needed to do was a phone call, and they will ask me, how many more marks do you want, sir? And I will have given her marks. What I'm saying is this. It comes back to what he said. This other child repeated for 1 year, and it was in that her second year that she met the man that she married. So there are very many basic things in the house that now I'm like their friends. We chat and they make more fun of me than any. But if in the house you don't have a liberal situation in which children are your friends, if your children are not your friends, but they are your slaves, you have forgotten that you are a steward. You are a steward for their lives, and God is going to ask you for their soul. Any child that becomes something else in higher institutions, God will ask the parents, how did you get him or her to that stage? May that not be our portion in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. I know that quite a number of people still have comments that they would like to make before we go for lunch. Yes.
Thank you very much. The idea of Africans transacting business with Africans, this is very good. I don't want to continue to import, but in Nigeria, the Standard Organization of Nigeria, what step is being taken that I will buy a shoe for 15,000 naira or 25,000 naira, after 2 months, it's already out of nowhere, or it's already nowhere. But I bought a fairly used shoe, 3,000 naira, and I use it for 5 years. I give it to my younger brother.
Interesting.
He continues to use.
Wow.
So will my interest in Africa or in my fellow brother that is producing increase, or will I have interest in that one that is coming from outside Africa? I think this is a food for thought. We should look critically into the institution that oversees production in Africa. So if we enjoy the benefit that is accrued on the price that we paid, there's no need for me looking outside. But when the inside is no good, I have to go out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll take that as a comment and not as a question. Yes, sir. Dr. Oluwole Iyola.
Thank you very much. Let me comment on the last speaker. Everything comes down to corruption. When there is no standard, or even if there is standard, you circumvent the system to produce inferior goods, then you will not have consumers to buy your products. So what do? We need to have standards and maintain that standard. Then our goods and services will be competitive in the market. I hope that has shed more light on your concern. Professor Aremusa, free trade zone is good, but FTC will only be good if participants are active members who are bringing their goods to FTC to trade. Case in Nigeria is we are just like a rabbit with carrots in our hand, with 2 hands. Chop, 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 chop. We just consume, we don't produce anything. How will FTC benefit us? All we will be doing is just keep importing goods and services, and we are just consuming. We are not producing anything, up to toothpicks. It's a situation that is alarming.
It is, sir.
I rest my case.
Thank you very much, sir. Fine. Yes, sir. I know you'd like to respond to that. We'll just take that comment as we get ready for lunch.
Let me just respond from here, and then with respect to Nigeria. Number one, there's a difference between free trade zone and free trade area. A free trade zone is within a country in which you allow a manufacturing company to come and be producing. We call it a sort of an economic legation. No, they produce according to the terms they are used to in their home country. Another word for it is export processing areas. That is a free trade zone. But a free trade area is an economic integration subject of countries coming together and then collapsing the various barriers that impede trade and then trading freely among themselves. It's totally different. Now, back to the real question, which is to say, does Nigeria have a lot of things to produce? The answer is yes. This country is blessed. There are quite a lot of productive activity in Nigeria. Manufacturing activity, we are doing extremely well until we have bad governance. I remember that trailers and trailers of products are being loaded at Idumata in the early 80s. I mean, we have to have a sort of people that come to buy my wife product. They load 3-4 trailers to go to the Republic of Benin, to go to Togo. I was in Freetown one day, and I saw the product of my company right on the street. They are no longer there. Why? Because the domestic production opportunity are totally gone against the producers. And then we can no longer produce because of corruption. That is it. So that is the issue. We need to solve the corruption. We don't have to use it as an opportunity that we deny out of continental free trade area. The danger of it is that if you don't do, look, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, quite a lot of Nigerians that are trading in Ghana, their shops have been locked up. Ghana has no right to do that because under the free trade free movement protocol, they can't do that. So simple, that will be solved. But outside ECOWAS, they can send your people home if you did not sign ACFTA. Yeah, because you don't have the right to be there anyway. Because the right of establishment as well as free movement, you did not sign. So why should their company be there? And a lot of Nigerian companies are in all these countries. Go to any of these East African countries, you even see Nigerian banks there. So you see, that you don't know doesn't mean other people do not know. The earlier you know, the better. So we have productive opportunities. We have subcontracting opportunities. There are certain products we are producing here that we enter into the production function of South Africa, of other countries. Their own, we enter our own, and all those kind of economies of scale is going to enlarge the country. And that is it.
Thank you so much, sir. Can we put our hands together, please? And so at this point, we will go for lunch. 30 minutes of lunch. We have, oh, you'd like to say something, sir? Oh, okay. Very quickly. We'll just take that comment very quickly, and then we will go for lunch.
Be really very brief. Talking about corruption in response to my brother over there. You see, whatever policy we have in terms of economic policy, any strategy, management, if there is no that leader who is going to really be devoid of corruption, that leader will bring everything down. And you know what? This leader came from us, from the society. He grew up from us. Take, for instance, a child those days. You send a child on an errand, and he or she comes back and say, okay, take this for you. He goes away or she goes away. Next time, he's expecting that from you. You're corrupting his or her mind. And if you don't give it to him or her, Next time you call him or her to come and to do something for you, she will feel reluctant. Today, there's no standard. But then there were measures, there were standards. Parents, we're talking about family. From the parents, from the community. Today, in those days, an educated person from a community, maybe the community will come together, raise funds, send that person to the university, and after graduation, he or she got a job. And he is in a position of, authority or position where he can dip his or her hand into the pulse of the government.
Yep.
His community will look away because he's theirs. And they say, as long as little things are coming down to them, they say, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That is corruption.
Yeah.
And, corruption is far wide. We cannot, giving a tip is corruption. If we say it is not, then we are saying stealing is not corruption.
Like someone famously said.
So, it's a wider concept. It's a very wide concept. And it's not too late for us in Africa. I am a Nigerian, so I know much about Nigeria. It's not too late for us, for the future. Maybe for my own generation, it's a bit late. But those ones coming up, we need to go down and teach them that they should be conscientious, they should be honest in whatever they do. They should, when they get to the position of authority, they should deliver leadership without expecting anything in returns. So there's a lot involved in it. No matter what we have laid down strategies in economics, in politics, a corrupt leader will bring everything down. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll go for lunch for 30 minutes, and we will come back to continue the conversation. I know that people have a lot to say, particularly regarding the issue of leadership and corruption. As soon as we get back, we will continue with the conversation. Lunch is at... Okay. Okay. So all of our special guests, we will have lunch waiting at the guest house just opposite the ALDC. And then other participants, we have lunch waiting at Cafeteria 2, which is just about a minute walk from here. We will be back in 30 minutes to continue the conversation.